The next thing we need to review is how to calculate the costs associated with stock, common stock and preferred stock. So remember, we have two different valuation methodologies for finding the required rate of return on stock. If we are talking about the required rate of return on a stock added to a well-diversified portfolio where we are only susceptible to market risk, then we would use the CAPM model, where we start with the risk-free rate of return plus the beta times the market risk premium, which is the rate of return on the market minus the risk-free rate of return. The beta is the scaling factor for that market risk premium. So if the stock is more risky than the market as a whole, it has a beta greater than 1. And this bumps up the market risk premium. If it is less risky than the market as a whole or underreacts to changes in the market as a whole, it has a beta less than 1. So that scales down the impact of the market risk premium. Now, if you're not given that kind of information, if instead you're given particular information about the company, like its dividend and its current price and its growth rate, then we can use the dividend discount model to calculate the required rate of return on our stock. Either of these formulas can be used for the required rate of return that we enter into the WACC model. It's just a question of which type of information is given to us. Okay? So remember here, this formula says the stock price is the present value of all future expected dividend payments. One of the tricks that they could give you is to give you DIV 0 instead of DIV 1. Remember, to get the price today, P0, you need DIV 1, right? So in this formulation, this is just rearranged algebraically, solving for R, because R is what I'm asking you to find here in order to enter into your WACC equation. For preferred stock, we're just going to talk about plain vanilla preferred stock, where the company pays the same dividend in perpetuity. Now, preferred stockholders get paid out first before common stockholders, which is why preferred stockholders tend to face less risk, but there is no G here. So you don't have to worry about DIV1, DIV0, whatever. They're all going to be the same constant dividend paid in perpetuity. So the required rate of return on preferred stock is just dividend divided by P0. Now, here are some other pieces of information to review when we are talking about a company and paying out its stock. Remember, the company has a choice to either pay out its earnings in the form of dividends or keep them in retained earnings. Both of them will impact the required rate of return on stock. So if a firm is retaining its earnings, there is an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost must be accounted for, and that's what we're going to use as our required rate of return there. So what is that opportunity cost? That's the return that the shareholders could earn on alternate investments with the same risk. Or the firm could repurchase its own stock, which also has RS. So even if the firm is not paying out any dividends, it still has a required rate of return that it must use on its common stock. Now, if your firm decides to issue new common stock, we have a way of estimating the required rate of return there, or the cost of equity capital there. So remember, when we were doing bonds, if we were estimating the cost of new bond issue, we would calculate the yield to maturity and use that as our best estimate of the new cost. When we're talking about a company just using its regular common stock, you'll just solve for R, either using the CAPM model or the dividend discount model. But if we say they want to issue new common stock and we want to figure out the cost there, then we need to include something called the flotation costs. And we're going to set that up in the same way using the DCF model, or dividend discount model. DCF stands for discounted cash flow. So here's our example. Our firm's current stock price is 50, so that's going to be our P0. You just paid a $4.19 dividend, so that, since it says just paid, that means DIV 0, and your dividends are expected to grow at a 5% rate of 5% per year. So that's going to be your G. Your flotation cost, which is the cost of issuing new stock, is 15%. What is your cost of capital? Okay, so here's our adapted cost of equity calculation where we include the flotation cost. So remember before, it was just R equals the dividend yield, which is dividend divided by P0 plus G. Now, if we're talking about new stock, we're going to need to remember to multiply that denominator, that P0 times 1 minus F. So all I need to do is plug into this equation. We were given div0 and G, so we can use that to calculate div1 as $4.39, roughly $4.40. Our G is 5%, so I'm going to put that in there. P0 was 50, so P0 times 1 minus 15% flotation cost gives us 42.50, and then our new cost of equity, assuming new stock is issued, would then be 15.4%.